So what is PostgreSQL? So PostgreSQL is an advanced enterprise class open source relation database that supports both SQL rational and JSON non-rational querying. So SQL basically stands for Structured Query Language and is mostly used to basically write with database, to work with database, and it's rational. So and JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So basically, this is more easier for software to parse and generate between servers and web application, and this one is considered non-rational querying. So it is a highly stable database management system backed by more than 20 years of community development, which has contributed to high levels of resilience, integrity, correctness. PostgreSQL is used as the primary data store or data warehouse for many web, mobile, geospatial, and analytical applications. PostgreSQL is available integrated with the package management on most Linux platforms. When available, this is recommended way of installing PostgreSQL since it provides proper integration with the operating system, including automatic patching and other management functionalities. I mean, PostgreSQL is also available for Windows and other operating systems because it's one of the oldest database management system, at least founded since the 80s, and we'll go into the history. So this is the history. PostgreSQL, originally called Postgres, was created at UCB, University of California, Berkeley, by a computer science professor named Michael Stonebreaker. Stonebreaker started Postgres in 1986 as a follow-up project to its predecessors, Ingres, now owned by Computer Associates. So next slide. So continuing off of that, Postgres writes ahead, logging makes it a highly vault-tolerant database. Its large base of open source contributors lends it a built-in community support network. PostgreSQL is ACID compliant and has full support for foreign keys, joins, views, triggers, and stored procedures in many different languages. It includes most SQL 2008 data type, including integers, numeric, Boolean, char, varchar, date, interval, and timestamp. It also supports storage of binary large objects, including picture, sounds, or videos. And also, it's been collecting data since I said earlier 1986. So it is one of the oldest database managing system out there. So okay, continuing off of that. So some of the features that PostgreSQL possesses is it possesses robust feature sets including multi-version concurrent control, or for short MVCC, points in time recovery, granular access control, table space, asynchronous replication, nested transaction, online or hot backup, a refinery query planner or optimizer, and writes ahead logging. It supports international character sets, multi-byte character encoding, Unicode, and it is local aware for sorting, case sensitive, and formulating. PostgreSQL is a highly scalable both in the quantity of data it can manage and in the number of concurrent users it can accommodate, which is interesting. I think the other database management system similar to this, uh, founded by Oracle, I believe, they have the amount of users that they could accommodate is very limited compared to PostgreSQL. So that's another interesting point I wanted to make. Okay, next slide. So these are hardening tips that we're gonna go over. So the first hardening tip I would recommend for PostgreSQL is prevent connection from networks that don't require database access. So this is kind of self-explanatory. You don't want to, if it's not required, you don't want others to have any type of access to it. So setting listen underscore address to localhost will force the operating system to reject connection attempts from other servers before they reach PostgreSQL. So you could just do this from the setting by making listen underscore address the localhost. This will prevent unauthorized access to the database and underlying data structures. Okay, our second hardening tip would be consider disabling remote access to PostgreSQL. This action alone eliminates a host of substantial attack vectors. If a remote access to database is required, SSH to serve housing the database and use a local connection thereafter. Alternatively, you can set up a tunnel access to PostgreSQL through SSH, effectively giving client machines access to a remote database if they were local. So I guess this would only work if you're local, but if it's just over general outside network, it would be hard. And you don't want to take that risk of people trying to access unauthorized people trying to access your PostgreSQL data. All right, next. Okay, so I guess this will be the last the third hardening tip is use hash-based column encryption for values that don't need to be decrypted. Encryption methods such as AES are two-way, they could be decrypted, while hash-based encryption methods such as MD5 are one-way. For values that only need to be checked for a match such as passwords, use only one-way encryption for an added layer security in this event that table data is compromised. So which makes sense because you could also set up for the password, you could also set up a two-factor authentication, but that would be added to another hardening. So I don't want to make a full hardening tips, but you could also do that. But basically, if you use the AES encryption, which is a two-way, it could be decrypted. Whereas if you just use the MD5, it's on one way. You could use that for your password. Alright, so next slide. Alright, so that's the end, and I have the citation of the websites I used to make this presentation. Alright, that'll be the end of this whole presentation. Have a nice day.